Hey, Baruch, how are you?
Hey,
It's
Yerman.
3 weeks. It's crazy.
It is insane. I am so excited to be back. This has been
Oh,
like
gosh, yeah.
I've been waiting for this, well, for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's been the highlight of the last 3 weeks, even though it didn't happen until just now. So welcome back, and welcome back
Absolutely.
to all of our watchers, our
Yeah.
viewers. You can
That is
see
awesome,
the out of practice brain and talking is I got to catch up.
right? Right. I was like listening to the podcast this morning and I was like, oh, goodness, I really missed this. And tonight's
Yep.
a live show. I have to like warm up. So
hmm
I totally agree. But we have a really awesome guest today. I'm so excited. He's actually your guest. So let's bring him in and then try to introduce him.
Yeah.
All right. Peter.
Hello,
How's it
gentlemen.
going?
It's
How's it
great to be
going?
here. It's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being on the show. I have to admit, full transparency and disclosure, I am fangirling a little bit right now. You are probably one of my favorite people to have interacted with, to follow on various social medias and LinkedIn. So I'm starting to get those fangirl butterflies.
I'm
So
humbled. I'm
I'm
humbled.
honored to have you on the show.
That is awesome. Should
Well,
we jump right into the bio?
let's get into it because
Yeah.
I know you're me. Okay. Breathe 1 second. Okay. I know Peter. Yermi has gotten to know Peter, and you guys are about to get to know Peter, but we're going to do the official bio, the official introduction, because it's pretty cool. And then we're going to get into the Peter version. So, known as the unlearning coach, Peter Hostrawser has been a business educator in the Chicago area for over 20 years, founding the OPRF School of Business at Oak Park and River Forest High School in Oak Park, Illinois. He's an entrepreneur and change agent for traditional educational systems, as well as a business coach. Peter has helped hundreds of young entrepreneurs start and continue their paths to success. Peter is the host of the Disrupt Education podcast, one of my all-time favorite podcasts to listen to, which is number 8 on the best 50 educational podcasts in 2022. I have to say, I am a little biased, also because I was very fortunate to be a guest on Peter's podcast probably about a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
And on that podcast, he talks with creative and non-traditional learners, and they share their stories and thoughts on how to change education. He currently teaches business at Amos Alonzo Stagg High School in Palos Hills, Illinois, USA. I said Illinois. Yeah. I'm butchering the names. And is an advisor for the pre-professional portfolio and networking startup SpikeView. His value is to help others find and show their value. Really awesome bio there, and it's scrolling on the bottom, so I encourage everybody to read that because I completely butchered the pronunciation of most of those words.
You did fine. You did fine.
But again, it's just really awesome to have you here, and I want to start off by having you share with us and with our audience more about who you are, in your own words, what you do, and kind of where you started from and how you got to where you are nowadays.
Okay, well, this show's going to go all the way into tomorrow. No, I appreciate that.
Wow, that's generous.
Yeah, not bad coming off of 3 weeks of Passover. Right. You guys are doing well. Don't worry about Baruch. You're awesome. Good.
Thank
you. I've actually said Illinois myself a couple of times.
And you live there.
Yeah, I do. I grew up in Indiana, though. That's my excuse. Okay. So yeah, wow, 20 years in education, and I want to change it every day. But I love questioning things. It's not always welcomed in systems, especially public school systems. We've had that conversation before. But I guess like where I started, I grew up in a family where my father was a coach. I went to a small high school, rural high school in Indiana. And my father always told me, don't get into education because of the politics. Well, me being who I am, the middle child, I had to, get into school and then get smacked by the politics. But if you go back into my own like kind of learning journey, I had no intentions of being an educator. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Bounced around, got a degree in broadcast journalism and communications at Valparaiso University in Northwest Indiana, and just kind of bounced around. I worked different jobs and had a lot of fun. But there's no real traction, and I never really knew my skills until I started to work a little bit with finally got into video production, where after 3 years after a degree I finally got into it. And I just started learning about speaking to people, and we created our own business, me and my previous college roommate. And I was like, wait, I really like this business stuff. It was hard, it was fun. We wasted a lot of time and money and made a lot of failures, but it was fantastic. And I was like, I wish I would have known this before in schools. And then I got an opportunity. My girlfriend, who's my wife at the time now, that sounded backwards there. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife.
Take a step back.
Yeah, I go the other way, I'm in trouble. There was an opportunity at her elementary school to teach these youth about video production. They did video production for their morning announcements, and it was VHS. So I'm dating myself here a little bit, but the kids learned how to actually edit. They had to do some math. They had to script. They had to do some things. And some of the kids were great academic kids, and some were not so great. And they all started to they improved their math skills, their writing skills. And that was the key. I was like, I need to get back into education. And from that point on, it's been all about business education. So that's the very brief run in, but yeah, it's been 20 years and it's been an experience, and I love every minute of it.
Okay, Jeremy, just so you're aware, I'm probably going to end up hijacking half the show.
Please, this is yeah. You guys are the educators, so by all means, this is great.
What's fascinating to me, and I'm finding this more and more, I think most educators, and definitely the best educators, are the ones that either swore they would never be in education or had no plans or interest in being in education. And it's almost like there was something else that they were doing, or something else they wanted to do, and they saw that they could do so much more with whatever it is that they're doing in an educational format. And you can change lives so much better, which is kind of like, I think that's kind of the purpose of this whole topic. And I don't know, in general, we like to be free flowing with this, and but there are like guiding principles or guiding questions. I don't even know what they are this week, but to me, like there you go. Jeremy's on the ball.
Yeah, he'll remind you.
I'll get cues. That's what it is here.
But it's perfect because I think that is the point of this topic of ongoing education, is that idea of, no matter what you're doing, no matter what industry you're in, there's got to be continued education. There's got to be growth. And there's always a lesson in education from whatever it is you're doing, something that can be applied to education. But there's also always lessons from education that can be applied to what we're doing. My brother was sharing one of the religious texts that we, or semi-religious texts that we do every day. There's like a daily tidbit, so to speak. And recently it was from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad Hasidic movement, and he compiled this book. And the one that came up a couple days ago was how everybody has their purpose and they need to be pursuing that. I'm paraphrasing, but the metaphor that he used was somebody who is talented at polishing pearls should not be baking bread, and somebody who's talented at baking bread should not be polishing pearls. Like, do what you're meant to do. So I was looking into that in the sense of, okay, well, maybe I should just stay focused in teaching. And my brother said, maybe you should push further into coaching. So it was that interesting thing there. And the point of all of this is that I'm blanking. I'm talking too much. I think the point of all of this is that there's a lesson for everything from everything. So for me, Jeremy told this to me. He said, well, continue your coaching, but bring it from an educator's perspective. Okay, that there was a point there. I don't remember what it is. My brain's still catching up. But I'm going to throw it back at you. How did you see that transition? Like, what were the key factors, the guiding points that had you going from being in the business world to going into the education? And how do you see like the marriage between the two? Or we could just simply say, what is the importance of ongoing education, so that we kind of stay on track?
That's a great question, and I'm thinking of pearls and bread right now. But you got me. I'm here, man. I'm here. No, I mean, it was kind of twofold. I think one of the things was, as I went into entrepreneurship, again, I did not think I was going to be an entrepreneur until I worked for somebody else in the business, and I was like, "Whoa, I think we could do this better." And we tried, and we did it in certain ways. We did it better, and then certain ways. And it was a video production company, by the way. So it was back in the VHS beta days. And we took out a loan and did a lot of work. And the way I got the loan is I used to be the bartender at a country club, and one of the people there was a vice president of a bank. And he and I actually started a relationship talking about money and how does the whole thing work. And later on down the line, when I needed a loan, I called him up and I was like, he was a vice president of First Source Bank at the time. And he was like, well, bring me in what you need. And I brought in one sheet of paper with the prices of the things I need. And I sat it down. I'm like, write me a check. Yeah, okay, come on, right? And, any other banker who wouldn't have known me would have like, Peter, get out of here. No way. And he sat me down and wrote a business plan with me. And he actually outlined it. And he's like, you have to take this back and write it. And no lie, after 2 days, my business partner and I had 60 pages. Wow. It was insane. Wow. I'm like, I hate writing. Well, I love it now, but I hated writing when I was that young. And we came up with this big thing, and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. Now I'm writing because I love creating something. So that was one way that I saw it. And then the other way that I kind of got connected with this ongoing learning. And by the way, I had a business minor in college, and I never learned any of this, or maybe I just didn't listen. I don't know. But then I also, like, when I saw these young people, these third, fourth, and fifth graders really just actively learning and doing something, I was jealous. I was mad that I wasn't able to do that. So both of those things, you have a mentor piece over here. You have somebody walking you through things. And I was technically in my early 20s when everything. Right. And he walked us through that and really helped us. And then also seeing it on the other side and kind of getting out of the way, which he did as well, when he's like, go take it back and bring it back. We ended up getting the loan, by the way. And I think those are the two avenues that really struck me to connect business and just life skills, and bringing it into education, because I never ever thought about those things in high school.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, for me, the whole, like, I also came from the very business side of things. I grew up in entrepreneurship all my life and everything. And one of the jobs that I had when I knew I was getting let go, it was just the end of the contract and there was a merger going on, and I just knew that my name was on the short list. But the boss at the time comes up to me and he goes, you have a very strong knack for education. I see you one day becoming a principal of a school, he tells me. And I looked at him and I was like, why in the world would I do that? Like, why? Me, a principal of a school? I mean, I hated school when I was in school. I was good at it, but I hated it. And like, no, and I just was like, I never really understood that until I think it was 2019, I would venture to say, because it was right before the pandemic. And I was involved with a business school at the time. And there were all these teachers and there were all these like people there. And I was just about to graduate with my organizational psychology, master's in organizational psychology. And throughout all my research, I was discovering that it's going to be really hard to fix businesses at where they're at. Trying to go in and teaching, old dogs new tricks was going to be difficult. And there was this one opportunity where a group was kind of like breaking away from this school, and they wanted to build a system in a school and they were just not happy with how they were teaching business in the school.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, you're the business psychologist, could you help us out? So I was looking at them and I said, why shouldn't we try half day theory and half day practical? Let's throw the kids into real life. Let's see what happens. And it was a huge success. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened just then. And then that sort of fell apart because, in-person learning, and it wasn't going to work out through Zoom, and the company was too early stage. And so the company fell apart and whatever it was. But I learned from that experience that we are missing it in the educational world, and I wish I had that when I was growing up. I would have loved school a heck of a ton more. There's just that that ongoing, like that something you could hold on to, and that's why I discovered that the older I got, the more I liked education, the more I liked learning.
Yeah.
I got my master's degree in my 30s. I'm currently working on my doctorate. I'll probably get my doctorate around my 40s. And so I know people who got their doctorate in their 20s, you know what I'm saying? But I was the kind of guy that the more I progressed in life and the more I matured, the more I discovered some kind of like psychological hunger, I call it, and that to me is ongoing education. And that to me is what's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Number one, I still think you'd be a great principal. But number two, I think like it's somehow we've like made learning and education, it's just such a negative word as you're young, and I think, maybe there is part of the system that burns people out. And I'll agree that there are, but man, if you open people up and change their mindsets a little bit around, just looking for opportunities and really, I mean, I think it does take mentors and coaches to really help youth and anybody really. And you probably know this more than I do, with the psychology behind things, but like being that person that's actually going to say, you know what, you're really good at this, or you like this, and you identify that. Because I think when we identify with school, it's basically, I can tell you right away what I was really bad at, right away. I was like, okay, I was bad at this, and this. There are a few classes that you remember that were awesome. And everyone of my own experiences are things that we did. It wasn't like, oh, I never remembered a worksheet, right? Ever, except for we had a history teacher where her bird actually kind of chewed on mine once, but that was kind of funny. But like, like you never remember a worksheet or a test, but you really remember the experiences. And I like that half school, half kind of academic day, and then half experiential learning. And I would love to see more schools do that. And not only just in K through 12, but post-secondary, I mean, in anything. So yeah, that's great.
It's to share a story that actually just recently happened, because 100% what you said, Peter, that this isn't just for teachers and educators and students. Like this show applies to anybody and anything. But we literally, the principal at the school I work at now, reached out to me yesterday. He said that one of my students' grandfather wants to come and observe the classroom. I'm like, okay, that's kind of random. I mean, sure, why not? I said, is he an educator? Is he an investor? Like, what's his story? He's like, no, he's an educator, but he just wants to see his grandson's classroom. So he came by today. This is an elderly gentleman. He's, the beard is a rabbi and everything. And he comes in, he's hunched over. He's one of those guys that he's always studying. So he's permanently like this. And he comes in, and he just comes in with the most, and he's got more energy than I have. Wow. And he came in, and he just started off with a story, and then he was observing me teaching, and then he gave another story, and he was taking notes. And he asked me afterwards by recess if he can talk, and we start talking. We talk about education in general, and then we talk specifically about his grandson, who is not the most academically advanced student. He's definitely struggling. But when it comes to hands-on, he excels, and when it comes to helping out, he excels. And I was talking to this other teacher, this grandfather, and he said something that was very interesting. He's in his school in New York. He takes students who cannot read or struggle, and he's able to get them to the point where within a couple of weeks they're reading like that.
Wow!
And he says, what's the difference? It's that personal attention and getting to know, he used a different word, but essentially getting to know the student.
Yeah.
Getting to know the individual. And that's the thing. And that's what ongoing education is about. And whether in a school format or as an adult or in a business, even, it's okay, getting to know ourselves and what else do we need or what piques our interest and what do we want to know. But it's also finding those people who can do that for us. And then looking at what we know and then teaching that, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, again, he talks, he says, if you know Aleph, that's the first Hebrew letter. If you know Aleph, teach Aleph. Anything that you know, teach it. And looking at our viewers now who are commenting, first of all, thank you to all those who are watching and commenting, Dr. Terry, Alex, Anthony. But I want to highlight for a second, Alexandria. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm going to call you Alex because I think that's what we referred to you as. If I remember correctly, she's a nurse, but she also teaches, and she teaches other nurses, not just about nursing, but I think even the business end of nursing. Right, Jeremy? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yep. That's Alex. Yeah.
There you go. Like that's what it is. It's something, teach it, take it to the next level. If you're really good at something or you're pissed off because there's something wrong with education or the industry that you're in and you think that can be done in a better way, go out and do it. So it's awesome to be part of this group over here, and then to see that in our viewership, like we have those people as well.
Yeah. You know what I like about that is that conversation with people. One of the things that we're doing in the classroom, but I also know like this happened. I used to work for Auto Trader. Well, it was Auto Trader. Now it's autotrader.com. One of the things that we did in our meetings is it was, you have the meeting, but then there was a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of conversations. Even in the classroom right now, what we're doing is it's very difficult to break out of what they taught you in teacher school. But like to take each student outside the classroom during class and just have a quick 3, 4, 5 minute conversation. Now that takes a lot of time, but we get so much more traction because of that around what the student is interested in and how we can connect curriculum to them because of just that. So, but it happens anywhere. It happens anywhere in work that I've been in and obviously in educational senses. So it's great.
Wow. So that actually just ties into what I was about to say, to what Baruch is saying, and sort of in continuation to what I was earlier saying, that the more I mature, the more I find education being fun. It's that relationship component. So the older I got, the closer in age I got to my teachers. At some point, I was actually older than some of my teachers back in university and stuff. And it when you have that one-on-one, like when you're kind of like on the same level as the person, the fact that he's educating you means almost nothing to me. But the fact that you could build a relationship with somebody. And I was able, actually, one of my greatest mentors, Dr. Arnie, unfortunately passed away a couple of months ago. But he was my greatest mentor, and he taught me 90% of all that I know in business and stuff like that. And Dr. Arnie was just like the sweetest man. I always saw him as like my father / grandfather because he was kind of between those ages, but he was just the sweetest man. And I was privileged to have like outside of classroom time with him. And every time I was in the middle of a business deal or something, or he was always there to take my call and always there to guide me through it and walk me through the steps and whatever it was, that was a teacher who really invested in the relationship component of the education side of things. And I felt that I've taken away so much from him. I learned so much from him. And when I was doing that school thing, these kids were significantly younger than me, but I went down to their level and I started actually playing sports with them, like being part of them, being part of their life and everything. And they saw me as an equal, and it never said Mr., never said Sir, my name is Yermi and let's stick to that. And, that to me was where education started really getting fun in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, my wife will tell you I'm like a 13-year-old in my head. So maybe that's why I'm pretty good with high school kids. But yeah, you're right. I mean, having like, conversations at the level that they are and learning from one of the best things I did. The reason why I know, I mean, I'm pushing 50 and I'm like, I know a lot about like editing and all these different things. One kid came up to me and said, you're like Gary V of education. And that was it.
I
I was like,
love it.
whoa,
That's a
right.
great line.
And I was like, of course, now I'm like, well, Gary V is more like Peter Hostrawser of, business and marketing, but okay.
Yes.
All right. So, but then, they were like, you should check out this Snapchat and, you should check out Instagram and do all these things. I'm like, all right, let's go, and even today, like, I do have a TikTok. I haven't got quite dove into it much, but when I post something, the kids are like, hey, I saw your TikTok. I'm like, maybe I should start teaching business on this thing. But it's fun, and you do learn, and man, you connect generationally like that too.
Yeah.
Just like you said, Jeremy, that's great.
So you kind of started answering the question I was going to ask next. I'm one of the things that my father always spoke about was there's the what so. Everybody knows what so, what needs to be done. But most people don't focus on the so what. Well, how do we get it done? What are you going to do about it? We're in a really interesting time where, COVID kind of woke everybody up, or woke a lot of people up, to realize that they're not living the life that they want to live, or they're not in the job that they want to, have, or that maybe as a student, they look at their parents and they see where their parents are and they see what just happened to the parents and they want to make sure something's different. So how does somebody go, whether as a student or an adult who is maybe looking to transition out of his job or his career or break into a new industry, in your opinion, your thoughts, your experience, how would somebody go about making that, transition? We're talking about building relationships. So how do we, either as a student who thinks, well, nobody's going to look at me, I'm just a teenager, how do they go about building those relationships? Or how do we go about building those relationships? How do we figure out what parts of ongoing education we need in our lives, so that we can then get to the next step of whatever our life looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a big question. I think, I'll go to the learners, right? And especially younger learners that we've always missed. You come out of school and you're a GPA, you're a test score. And then you have this ID number. And then that's really who you are. And I'm talking public school systems. There's some pretty cool, innovative schools out there. I know Jeremy is going to start one here soon. But like, we see these things and the students then just focus on that, right? They don't really care about the learning. We've unintentionally, or maybe even intentionally, really kind of guided students to look at that number. And if that number isn't big enough, we'll do anything and everything to get that number up, even staple $20 to the next step. Who knows? But it's crazy how we do that, right? There's so many different reasons that was way back when. But now I think one of the things that we need to do is actually, that's why I'm the unlearning coach. I love to have students unlearn that, or even adults unlearn the fact that, you're graded and you have to stay in this box. To learn really what your strengths and skills are, and then how do you attach those to something you're interested in. And many people have said this, like if even if you're great at something, you may not like doing it, so you kind of have to connect those things. So for me, honestly, and I know I'm a little biased here, but that's why I work with SpikeView, because it is a pre-professional platform where students are actually building their portfolio. They own what they're building. They own their skills, and it's actually K through life. It's built for that. And also building a network and talking with people. I mean, I've learned so much through SpikeView. I've learned so much through LinkedIn. Obviously, we're here, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're at a lot of different places where we're conversating, and it's a little less like social media-y, like just for entertainment. I like to have students and adults in general really learn how to use social media and not be used by it.
Yeah.
Which I think is very, very important. And I, if you identify your skills and strengths, and there's been some great time, the Strengths Builders 2.0, and these things have been around. But the job market right now is still kind of giggy, and people are saying if I can keep you for 2 to 5 years, I've won. Right. And so I think it's very interesting that people are looking to transition to really understand their skill sets, understand what they can and can't do, and don't worry about the things you can't do, but just identify those.
Right.
Identify, what you're interested in, and then start building. Because honestly, knowledge is out there, right? Knowledge is everywhere. It's the old Jack Ma, like knowledge is everywhere. We have to figure out how can we help people. How can we lift each other up? And I think those are the starting places, but especially when in school, what I love to do, and kids will fight me on it because I teach at high school, and not intentionally, but they know it's so much easier to take a multiple choice test than it is to really self-reflect, take a look at, how empathetic are you? Can you design think something? Can you work on a team with others? Because we have isolated each student into a grade. I always tell kids, grades don't really pay bills, man. I've never filled up the tank of my car with grades. I mean, I need like skills to actually earn some value, to earn something to put in there. So, but yeah, I think in that's the best I can put that, but we could go on and on about that. Yeah.
Very true. I mean, and this is exactly what you're touching upon is the pivot that Baruch and I recently made. Like, who is it that we're actually servicing? Who is our ideal client in a sense? That has been a recent pivot for Baruch and I, simply because I was actually on a speaking tour. I was going from place to place to different like business conferences and expos, and I was talking, and I prepared a whole conversation around our ideal client at the time, which was these organizations, and here are the problems these organizations are facing. And one of the key problems that we found was that the employees were complaining that they didn't have an opportunity for growth within the company. And had they only had that ongoing education or skill building or something, they could reach that management level that is all of a sudden open. And instead of hiring somebody from the outside, they could have gotten promoted and they had a future in this company. And all it took was just that ongoing education. And so as I'm talking to the audience, I'm starting to notice exactly what you just said, that our culture became very giggy and very, like, especially now with the pandemic, 25% of employees have left their jobs. That is a huge number. 1 in 4 left their jobs, either quitting or middle of quitting, thinking of quitting, all these things. And so what did all these 25% people do? A huge number of them went and became entrepreneurs. And now they're, stuck, and they're trying to figure out life, and they're trying to figure out how to do their business. And I'm done working for somebody. I'm doing my own thing now, And so we started talking to them, because these were the people who were showing up to all my workshops that I was giving and all the talks I was doing. And so we started like really focusing on them. And one of the key components that we said is like, go get those skills, go get that ongoing education, go get that, forget it. Doesn't have to be university. It doesn't have, maybe it is, I don't know, but it doesn't have to be that. And I said, everything today is a Google search or a YouTube search away. There's a free course on something. There's a paid course on something. There's always a course for something. So go get the skill you need. And then like also Dr. Terry over here in the comments was saying that networking. So you're never going to know who you're going to meet and what you're going to learn from that person. I mean, just from meeting you, Peter, I learned so much. And I've been in education for a while. Baruch has been in education for a while. But just getting to know people like you, getting to know, we have another friend, Thomas Earp. He's taught us so much. Rick Davis. There's all these people that we meet through the networking. That is part of ongoing education.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to teach us.
Yeah. And that network is also, that is a great mention in the comments and what you mentioned there, because well, when we're youth, and I just did my latest podcast was around, job shadowing, like younger people really opening up, right? Like, is it the place of worship is not the only place that we do that in our own families. It should be everywhere, like in the schools and obviously in our communities as well. I think a really healthy community is where youth are actually okay with interacting with adults and asking questions like, why is that road like that? Or why do we not have a place to park our bikes? And really to become engaged and empowering people while they're talking and working with people from different generations. I call that a vertical network. A lot of our students, they have, and we do this in our own work kind of environment. Our horizontal network are all the people around us kind of in the same area. Teachers usually hang out with teachers. Salespeople usually hang out with salespeople. There's always this weirdness between vertical, bosses and stuff. But I think if you eliminate that and you have like kind of a respect between that vertical network in any organization, and this is why I want my students to actually learn how to communicate with other older people, not just me, right? And again, I just had a student email me about flipping houses, and of course, every kid wants to be in real estate when real estate's good. But he was actually having a real conversation with somebody who does it, and they sat him down over the weekend, and this young man emailed me and said, "Thank you, you're teaching real skills, not just like fluff. Like I really got a lot of information out of this person." And that's what's wonderful as well. So that networking is key.
Love it. And I just want to bring this up because this is exactly what I call the psychological hunger. That's it. And what you seem to be doing with that kid is that you're feeding that psychological hunger. Yes, right now real estate is so hot and so great and all that stuff. But what you're doing is that he's going to be looking for anything in the world that's always hot and going. And that psychological hunger will always feed at him. And then you're kind of like bringing him to that importance of that ongoing education, what we've just been talking about until now, and pushing him forward. Go find that person who's in that field. Go find that mentor, whoever you could learn from, that network, whatever it is. And that's why I love when I heard that term psychological hunger, I was like, I'm stealing it. I don't even remember where I heard it, but I was like, I'm stealing it. That's it. This is mine from now on,
Yeah. I mean, it is like you get the hunger, and then let's be honest, right? Like it's natural human instincts, animalistic instinct. It kind of creepy out to think about that. But like, if you are hungry and you want to go learn something, and your fears will start to shed away, and you will actually go get it. And sometimes, you have to kind of throw in an appetizer there, here and there.
Right.
And I think that's what a coach or a mentor or even a good leader does in any organization, is really kind of give those people the appetizer. Okay. So this is, but also the greatest thing for me is I'm learning from this young man as well. I'm like, wow, tell me what I did, like, so I can actually scale this out even more. I just had, again, a young lady in the class who wants to go into marketing, and we brought in appetizers, and we brought in a president of a food company on the south side of Chicago, and he connected her with somebody in the White Sox organization. I got to throw out my White Sox. There's the stadium there. And they got on a phone call in class yesterday, and I was like, here, go in the office, do what you got to do. Right. And she came out of there, and she's like, oh my gosh, she taught me 2-3 really good things. I'm like, well, there you go. So that's that appetizer to get that hunger going too. I love that term.
Yeah.
I love that, especially because, first of all, if I understood what you just said, you let a student ditch class to speak to somebody who would, in the long run, have a much bigger impact on them than that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was that they weren't in your class, which is huge, because I think nowadays a lot more educators are doing that. But really, like when I was in school, that wasn't the case. You need to go to the bathroom. You had to get permission. You only allowed to go once, right? So forget.
You have the slip. Did you have the slip that you had to pick from the board or whatever they had there?
Oh my gosh, that was horrible. And then we got smart. So what did we do? We made photocopies of it, and we laminated it, and then we just didn't show up to class, and if somebody caught us, oh, I'm going to the bathroom, right?
Brilliant. I don't know why more students don't do that, by the way. I'm like,
right?
It's a yellow sheet of paper. It's no.
So I told my students, my current students, I said, you guys can attempt to get away with whatever you want, but make it good. So like if I walk out of the room and you're supposed to be sitting quietly and you're going to send somebody to watch, at least do it discreetly. Like, don't have them standing in the middle of the hall. Don't have them say, oh, Rabbi Dubrow's coming back. No, be discreet about it. And like, we worked on it, and then they got too good at it, and I had to like nix it. But the other thing I wanted to say was, you know, Jeremy, you mentioned this in the podcast, and this really ties into, Peter, what you were saying. You know, this kid who's interested in real estate right now, or the kid who's interested in the White Sox, or whatever it may be. Right now, that may be their interest, and that may not be what they're going for long term. Maybe 5 years down the line, they've been successful at real estate, and they're going to want to try something else, or they weren't successful. But the point is, they're building skills now that will last them much longer. And you know, so we all know the famous quote: "A jack of all trades is a master of none."
Yep.
Most people don't know that there's a continuation to that. And it's actually, I have it on my phone here. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And we hear this, a jack of all trades is master of none. So that lives, oh, we have to focus on one thing and only do that one thing in our life. No, experience things, learn different things, and see where life is going to take you, and use everything that you've learned. Like, you know, I was speaking to somebody because we recently got trained in, not positive parenting. It's the
negative parenting. I
negative,
like it.
Exactly. Nurtured heart approach, right? And so I was having this discussion with a fellow educator about it, and they're like, listen, I think it's complete, utter BS. You know, when are you going to discipline it? And I said, listen, I don't agree with everything, because I think there has to be some sort of strict discipline here and there. But at the same time, there's going to be a kid that I'm going to have, or even adult that I'm going to meet at some point, whose strict discipline is not going to work for. And they need the nurtured heart approach, or the nurtured heart approach is going to get them to the point where structured discipline works for them. So we have to, as educators, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as parents, as adults, you know, we have to have a tool belt that is filled with tools that we can pull from at any point. It's not enough to know one thing.
Yeah.
So sure, go out there, learn about real estate. Go out there, learn about sports management. Go out there, learn about education, for crying out loud. So that way, when you end up finding that thing that is really what you're passionate about, you'll now be able to pull from all of these, you know, different things that you've experienced. And that really speaks to also what you were talking about, you know, the vertical networking versus the horizontal networking. And that's really what we do. And I'll let Jeremy take it away with this point. That's what we do with our Clubhouse on Thursdays, is it's that opportunity to have that vertical, that vertical, and that, yes, horizontal.
Horizontal.
It allows us to have that horizontal networking as well as that vertical networking. But Jeremy, talk a little bit about the Clubhouse, and then we'll get back into, we're not keeping to the 45 minutes. I'm just saying it right now. Peter said it's gonna be 3 days, and I'm totally fine with that.
Well, I had
to keep it to 45 minutes for the sake of my editing, but throw that out the window. Jeremy,
well, I actually no. So I'm gonna talk about the Clubhouse for 1 second, but I do want to tell the audience that number one, we do have a gift for this show, talking about ongoing education. So we did create a free. We have a free course that we took out of a paid course, that we took a portion of it to make it available to everybody, because the next question I have for Peter, right after we introduce the Clubhouse, and that's going to be the closing statements for this show, is going to talk about that ongoing education, because we are trying something new in this particular show, where we want the audience to walk away with an action item, sort of like a homework, if you will. Something that they could take away from the show and actually apply in their day-to-day life right away. So right before we get to that, there is that Clubhouse. You know, earlier today, Baruch and I did the show. It was him and I talking. Now we have the awesome Peter. He's the expert. He's being highlighted right now. But we want to give the audience an opportunity to get highlighted as well. And that's why we have an awesome platform on Clubhouse. It is very different than the clubhouses that you may be used to. In this clubhouse, we want everybody to have a chance to talk. So we do have a system that is in place. And we encourage you to come join there because we want to hear your input, your feedback, and everything that you have to share because you're just as awesome. And you have so much to give us. And we're looking to learn from you as well. So right here on the bottom, there's scrolling, or what is it there? Tomorrow at 7 p.m. In the clubhouse, there is the show notes, and there is, everywhere else you're going to see it. Or you just go to Clubhouse and you look for the Exceptionally Irresistible Show, and you're going to find us there. So that is the Clubhouse. And Peter, encouraging the ongoing education, right?
Yeah.
So what is a practical step that anybody in our audience today can take, moving forward? And, how could they encourage themselves to go learn at least something new, at least, something? How could they grow today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wow. I think, to preface what I'm about to say, I think people think of learning something has to be grand. It's got to be huge. And then we just grab some potato chips and watch Netflix all night, right? Like we're just like, okay, well, I'll get to that tomorrow. My students do it. I do it. Everybody does it. And I think it's like, okay, think about something that is curious, that's on your mind, that maybe if you're keeping a journal, you wrote it, or you heard it, in a family dinner, or maybe you saw something on TV, whatever. Like, make note of it and think about that one thing, and then go to the smallest piece of how you can move the needle, just small. And I always look at the ladder. You see the ladder with these big gigantic steps, and no one can really climb up it. But if there's very small ladder, I don't know what those things are called. Those horizontal things.
Rungs.
The steps, are they rungs? Is that what they're called?
I think so.
So, and you can get up a ladder very easily. And I think it's about like just one small thing. Look up one term, like one term that is around. I love words. I mean, back in my day, again, I'm aging myself, we had the encyclopedias, right? We didn't have, I am older than Google, and I tell my students that and they freak out, but like, it's just like, read and take a look at one thing. Find a short story or a blog or a video or something on that topic, and just use that. And I'm going to use your word here, Jeremy, to start feeding yourself that psychological or that hunger that you want to go. We always think, we have to master, like, look, if you want to play guitar, you're not going to jump up there and just start strumming like any of the famous guitarists, right? Just learn one chord and play it over and over and over again. That's fine. And then you'll be doing the blues riff pretty soon. But like, just something very, very simple. And then when you're when you're feeling it, go to the next step, and then the next step. But it always, that one start is the hardest thing to get started. And everybody here knows, I know there's something that I'm already curious about. I've been reading a lot about and learning about. And I just know my first steps, and I try to do it every day. And a lot of people will log it every day, like, journalize, somehow, write down your notes, and you'll see your progress. You will definitely see your progress. That's why we're trying to get with kids with these pre-professional portfolios and writing letters and stories about who they are. Because then, a year down the road, they can actually really see, wow, I do it with my blog too. So just start small, find one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's that free gift, guys. Right here. It's called the Mental Real Estate. It's a free tool, and it comes with a course. That's the URL for it, or you just go to yermikirkis.com. There's going to be a small little free tool somewhere down where you scroll, or you just do that dash thingy with mental RE. And that is a free tool just for you to use. And we are there to support you as well through that tool. So you can reach out to us in our regular email. And that's that. So it's all about that ongoing education. It's all about that, doing that one more step, or doing that one more thing that something you didn't know yesterday and you all of a sudden know it today is going to propel you to that future success. And that's how it ties into that meaning and purpose. So whoever's watching right now, I encourage you, and even if you're watching this in the recorded version, take a snapshot with your phone or something, or however you do it. And you could obviously have access to this free tool and this free course. Don't worry, we won't drive you crazy. We won't, well, we will follow up just to see if we could be of any service further. But this is really a gift from us to you, because we do encourage that ongoing education because of how much we see that it's super, super important. So that's that. It's going to stay here for just a little bit longer, but I do want to take it off, and I do want to end off with Peter. If you have an ask, how can we reach you? If you have anything that you're offering people, here's that opportunity where they can connect with you. And I will take this off because I do not want to steal from your highlight.
Oh, no, it's awesome. I think I'm going to go there myself. I'm going to check that out. I'm excited. And thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you go to peterhostrawser.com or disrupteducation.co, you can connect with me there. I do have a free Strength Finders class that is just, 4 steps just to get people to really start to identify what their strengths are. I had a senior just say 2 days ago, I don't know what any of my skills are. I'm like, well, here, just go take that and run with it. But yeah, it really has you ask some questions and actually ask some of your inner circle about who you are. So that'll be there. Just drop me a note. And I'm always, if you hit a Disrupt Education as a podcast, I'd love to have more listeners and people start to comment and continue commenting and continue doing some different things. It's on YouTube as well. And then obviously I'm on LinkedIn as well. Or for those who are on SpikeView, drop my name, and I'd love to connect. So any one of those places, reach out, questions, comments. I learn from everybody I interact with, which is the best thing in life. So thank you.
Yeah. And all those links are going to be in the show notes on our recap. So look out for that on Friday and in this recorded version that's going to go on YouTube at some point. So we will have all that. And Bark, do you have any closing statements?
Oh, forget closing statements. I still have a bunch of questions to ask. We'll have to save that for later or a second episode. But just in closing statements, again, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Again, I think we've known each other for about 1.5 years now or so. We first met when you were interviewing me for your podcast, and I think that's when we were talking about me potentially moving to Dallas. So
yeah,
to be able to, 1.5 years later, or whatever it's been, have you on our show has been one of the greatest honors and privileges I could ever ask for. I'm going to be following up with you a lot more because like I said, I've got a lot more questions, but your content is absolutely amazing. But again, thank you so much for joining us, for dropping the mic, for dropping those knowledge bombs, those golden chicken nuggets, as we call them on the show. I highly encourage everybody to follow up with Peter. Any questions you have or any ways that you can even contribute to ongoing education. Everybody has a way. So follow up, get in touch with him, listen to his podcast. You don't need to be a teacher or an educator to appreciate it. So thank you very much. And, we're looking forward to hearing from everybody on the Clubhouse tomorrow night, and follow up with us about the mental real estate. Again, that thing is right there.
Yep.
Not linky. Yep. It's not a linky, but go to that link.
You're gonna be like, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm humbled. I'm very humbled. Thank you, gentlemen. I mean, I have learned so much from both of you as well. So yeah, I mean, I am just super humbled, and it's great to continue to learn from people.
Awesome.
And again, thank you for all the audience who were awesome on the chats. We will go back and we will re-comment and we will interact with you on the comments. Just unfortunately, we can't do it through this thing here, but we would love to interact with you. But we will come back at you and we will interact with you there. And hopefully we see you tomorrow at the Clubhouse. So thank you, everybody, and see you again next week for another awesome show. Bye-bye now.
Have a great night.